Good afternoon, ladies and gents. I'm just going live here today with somebody that I met at a Yellow Ribbon event. He was our speaker. Come to find out, he's an international Toastmaster champion and world-renowned speaker, as well as an author. And he used to work, I can't remember the place, I'll have to tell me. Anyways, he's an amazing man that I have had the privilege of getting to know a little bit. And he's pretty awesome. I can't wait for him to kind of talk to us today a little bit about trust and some great ways that he has for us to maybe implement that. Anyways, Casey, thanks so much for watching. I'm just kind of giving it a minute for a little bit of time to let people come on if they'd like. He's getting ready to come on. There he is. Thanks so much. And I'm Angie Drumm in Stillwater, Oklahoma. If you haven't ever watched me before, please type hash comments, and I want to thank you. Hey there, welcome on. We did it.
We did it.
All right, guys. Hey, if you see us, how about some thumbs up for some good audio? Can everybody hear both of us okay?
Yes, can you hear us? Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Oh, so, I'm not seeing any splashes on that.
So I don't know if that means nobody's watching or what. If you guys are watching live, awesome. If you're watching the replay, please type hashtag replay. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today and having a chat with me. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's it's funny. Both of us, calling out for the thumbs up and everything. They don't know we're both technologically functional, not literate. Or what did I come up with the other day when you sent it to me? Technologically learning?
Yes. I'm definitely technologically learning. Hey, Gris, thanks for coming on. Hope to see you soon at the drop soon, man. Even though I'm a little bit, hashtag one arm probs. Miss you guys. But so, Sporty, if you would kind of talk a little bit about what ideas you had to bring you to where you're at. I mean, what were some things that kind of just spoke to your heart that helped you to put you where you are?
Well, where am I? I missed the intro.
That's a great thing. So I'll let you introduce yourself and say where you're from and a little bit about you.
Oh, okay. You did. Well, I'm a native New Yorker. I'm now living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and that really is relevant to your question as well, because where I'm from, to get to where I am right now, I've been in my motivational speaking business, coming up on a quarter century.
That's awesome.
I've been at it. I've been at it 24 years. And before that, I was with the Wall Street Journal for 18 years.
Wow. And what did you do for them?
I started out as a messenger in advertising sales.
Oh, wow.
And through 7 promotions, 8 job titles, I got relocated from New York to Washington, D.C. in sales. And then I got relocated from Washington to Chicago, Illinois as a sales manager. And that's where I finished out my last 6 years with the Journal before retiring and moving into this speaking business. And so after 23 years in Chicago, I moved to Charlotte, and I've been in Charlotte 8 years now.
Okay, wow. That's some amazing things that some people don't even accomplish in a lifetime. So congratulations, just for making it this far.
I'm telling you, and wait, we can add to that. Since I've been in Charlotte now 8 years, I've also been on contract with the Yellow Ribbon Reintegration Program, which is how I met you. And so
exactly.
I don't know if that was 2011 or 2012. Does it ring a bell?
Well, I believe it was before my late husband Cale left for deployment, which was 2011 when he left for pre-mob, and he got back, in 2012 also. So it could have been one or the other. I know that you've spoken at lots of Yellow Ribbon events and really helped soldiers and their families to kind of, through those transition times that are so challenging.
Yes. Yeah. And in fact, now that you say that, then I'm going to go on and give us 11 and 12 because I probably did your pre and post.
It's possible. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know what? Those were my first trips to Oklahoma ever.
Really?
Yes,
It's
yes.
a great state. I mean, I know I'm a little partial because I live here, but we do have so much variety in our state. And like
Yeah.
the city where I live closest to was literally voted the fourth friendliest city in the United States.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir.
Oh, cool,
Yeah.
cool. Well, I know my New York isn't probably on the friendly list,
I would
but
love to visit.
yeah, and see what I always tell people that, and even as we, if we as we move on to talk about trust, it's perspective as well. Trust is perception as well. And one thing I always say to people when they, I've had people say to me, "Oh God, you're so nice. Are you really a New Yorker?" And what I tell them is, I think that, see, but New Yorkers are much nicer than the reputation that we may get around the country. Similar to how the ugly American
Right.
um, reputation around the world. It depends on who you know and who you're sharing time with, and
Yes.
that makes a difference.
Well, and I noticed that when I visited Chicago a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, on the train, it was the first time I rode an L, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing or where exactly I needed to go. And everybody just kind of was very conservative about the space that they were in, and they
Mhm.
had their headphones on, or they're like reading a magazine or looking at, their phones or things like that. But if you engage them in speech, they were very kind.
Yeah, and it's funny. Actually, that's one of the things that I really enjoy about how much I've traveled, and get those different perspectives. And I don't necessarily put mine down as you may not be able to Google some of the stuff I say, but as in my life experience, look at it. One of the philosophies I came up with in talking about my New York is, I always said, people in other places think, New Yorkers react. And so
Right.
even as I add that to what you're saying about Chicago's trains, we had that similar situation in New York. But and what happens is, you have a different type of awareness depending on where you live and what you're doing. And
Yeah.
and I'm going to use New York, but Chicago too. But I think maybe a lot of urban areas, it depends. With a lot of public transportations, the the scams that we run into
Yeah.
are usually from someone who's taking advantage of someone being nice. And so,
Right.
even growing up in New York, I mean, we have situation where someone may act like they were a visitor, and that's a way to get you to stop and do something,
Right.
and next thing you know, there's a scam going on. So
Right.
you end up getting, yeah. And then, again, we can also transfer this to what our service members go through at hypervigilance,
Yes.
where you start to wonder, how can I trust this person, if and so it's not easy. So
It's
I
not.
say that now I think about it, I'm saying that up front, because I think one of the things we want to definitely get to by the end of our conversation is the fact that you have to forgive yourself if you have not trusted someone in a certain way. Trust
Right.
isn't this one definition of you going out and just laying your heart out on the line for everybody that you see.
Right. Those boundaries are absolutely critical, and that discernment is what's so important, and unfortunately it takes us a long time and sometimes from a lot of bad situations or things like
Yep.
that to, get the knock knock lesson, and I'm really thankful for learning some of those.
In fact, that's why another thing I would say to people is to give yourself credit for is, if you've been betrayed or hurt, and who hasn't been,
Right.
or disappointed, give yourself credit for coming back and
Yes.
trusting another person, or falling in love again. You
Right.
know, um, because we've all been through maybe a challenging situation, and let's go on and use relationships, where somebody broke up with you and they broke your heart. Some people will decide that they're going to shut down and I'm never going to let that happen to me again.
Right.
And so then, they move away from having relationships when in fact, all it was, and I don't mean to minimize it by saying all it was, but it was that wasn't the person for you.
Right.
Or that wasn't the time for you and that person.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so give yourself credit if you've been through something and gotten back up, and if you've frozen your heart right now, warm it up, because the person who deserves you is out there.
Okay, so we're getting a couple of questions. What if you have been the one to hurt the other person?
Mm-hmm. Well, did you hurt them on purpose? See, a lot of times I think that a hurt is it can sometimes be a reactionary thing where something happens to us, and in the moment, what's going on in our lives makes us pass that on to someone else. And so we don't necessarily say, oh, well, let me get out here and try to hurt as many people as possible.
Right.
So now the onus.
Is it about like not taking the time to really heal the wounds within yourself, or to deal with some things maybe in the past before you carry that on to the next person and things like that, whether it be through childhood or previous relationships, taking that time. And if she says, no, but my behavior was deceitful, so I think you would have to decide where you're at in that now, where you can forgive yourself and the other person, just like, a lot of us have done. And it doesn't excuse anyone else's behavior or my behavior or whoever's, as long as I'm learning the lessons and taking accountability for those times, I think that that's absolutely important. And that doesn't mean running right back into the situation, and doing more hurtful things. Hey, Don Maurice. Hey, guys.
And I think there's two levels there. One, you talked about time. Hurt, background. You can hurt somebody because something happened to you yesterday.
Right.
So it could, so it could be, that's why I say sometimes it could just be a reaction where something that just happened to you in your life yesterday or last week, last month. And so this is the first time that's welling up in you based on something that someone says. And so it's like a knee-jerk reaction for you to fire out.
Right.
And you may hurt them. P.S., by the way, you don't necessarily always know that you have hurt someone.
Right. And it's having that relationship of communication, isn't it?
Yeah, and because you don't know what someone else is going through. Right. And so it's just like we've got, everybody's got inside jokes with their close friends. And so, they may make a state. In fact, let me give you this even better. When I first moved to Chicago, I was a sales manager, and I had a staff of 9 in Chicago in my sales staff. And the way I heard them talking to one another, I'm like, oh my God, these, that's so hurtful, the way they're speaking to one another. So I thought I needed to institute some type of apology a policy for them to speak to one and communicate differently.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, when I really thought about it, they totally loved one another.
Right.
It's just how, we'll say to our family members, we don't necessarily say nice things to our family members. Would you please pass the butter? Would you please pass the salt?
Right.
And then say, hey, you done with that? Hey, give me this. And so, so sometimes,
it's kind of like the difference between eating at home and the way you have those manners there and going out to eat or being at someone's house.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So that's why I say you don't always know when you're hurting someone's feeling, and which is why you can't beat yourself down for it, because, it may be unconscious, again, based on a trigger, that went on in your mind of something that they either said or did, or maybe it had nothing to do with them at all, and they just happened to be the person that was there.
But Don Maurice says, sometimes I have to think that they are going through something to make them act that way, and then it's not always my fault, which is exactly in alignment with what you said,
Exactly.
And forgiving ourselves first is really important, you know, and sometimes we have to ask for forgiveness from others, and sometimes we just have to write it down because maybe that relationship has been so damaged that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we've kind of moved in our separate ways, or whatever, you know, for either side. And so,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's really interesting how you bring up trust, because, you know, you get to learn how to trust yourself, you know, and it
Mm-hmm.
does take mistakes and time and communication and extreme vulnerability and transparency, which can be so scary, especially when you have been hurt so bad, whether it be by a
Yeah.
friend or a romantic relationship, you know, either way.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And one of the things I always tell people, you do have to put yourself first. You know, I know a lot of times people say, well, you know, I have to put my kids, my spouse, my partners, my parents. No, you have to put you first, because you have to take care of you,
Right.
excuse me, so that you can take care of the people that you love.
Right.
So for that, self-forgiveness is so important, because see, once you forgive yourself, then you know that you were, whatever this hurt that person experienced, if you were actually coming from a genuine place where you had not anticipated hurting them, then you can at least forgive yourself, and now you can rekindle that relationship if that's in the cards.
Right.
Because sometimes the hurt is irreparable.
Right.
Where, you know, you can say, well, you know what, I forgive and forget, but this relationship will have to end, whether it's romantic or just a friendship relationship, because it'll always come up.
Right.
So, you know, I just try so hard. I don't like extremes, always and never.
Right.
You know, black and white. We live in the gray.
We do.
And this.
And the gray is hard. You know, the gray is the messy
The gray is
part
very hard.
of life, you know, where there's beauty in the mess, you know, and we really
Yes.
do learn the biggest lessons and our biggest quote unquote mistakes, you know.
Mhm.
You know, and like Jerry says, absolutely, self-care is immensely necessary. If you don't plug the holes in your own bucket, you're not going to be able to overflow with love. At least that's what I
No.
found.
No, you can't. And you know what? Overflowing is nice, but you won't even flow.
Right. I mean, it won't even be
You
like
know?
a trickle. Exactly.
Excuse me.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, we both got our beverages handy. So thanks
Yeah.
again, guys, so much for joining us today. We would love to see a bunch of hearts if you're gaining value just from a simple conversation. You know, that's kind of what I'm trying to bring you. That's what Sporty's trying to bring you today. And I love how he has some of these great acronyms for some of the things that make it a little bit easier to remember some things
Yes.
in life. And I'm sure he's going to bring up some of those today because they've definitely stuck with me over the years.
Right. Well, let's go right into since I talked about self-care and
Yeah.
putting yourself first, that my principal primary acronym is FOCUS.
Right.
And that's FOCUS. Finding ourselves creates unlimited success.
Could somebody type that for me in the comments? Focus.
And I will too afterwards. Yeah.
Great.
But if somebody wants to do it, go right ahead. It's FOCUS. FOCUS. Finding ourselves creates unlimited success.
Yeah.
And then the tagline to that is focus on you and let other people come into focus.
That's smart.
Because once you see and you accept yourself for who you are, then you start to see who wants to help you and who wants to hinder you.
Right.
You know, some people don't want you to be this wonderful person overflowing with love, as you talk about. You
Right.
know, well, who
Or
are
see
you
you be
to do
successful,
that?
you know?
And let's put that success on the table, because a lot of times we don't want ourselves to be successful because it's so much easier to fail
Yes.
than it is to be a success.
And that was me in
when
the
we
past.
fail, when we fail, the pity party shows up to tell us why we failed,
Right.
to magnify it, and we like, oh, good, yeah, that's right. It wasn't me. It was them. They said I was the wrong color. They said I was the wrong sex, the wrong height, the wrong background. And so we feel good about failing
Right.
because we blame it on someone else. when we succeed, people show up and now they've got, oh, you must think you're better than us. So you must have kissed somebody's butt, you know, and you know.
Yes. That is so true. If you guys agree with that, let's see some ones in the comments, because holy crap. I mean, is that not the truth for anything that you've been successful in at all? Your cheerleaders disappear. But by golly, if you are failing, they show up with beer. You know, they're ready to, man, you're right, it was all them, or they're ready to tell you how you failed.
And that makes, subconsciously, that makes you comfortable with having this badge across your chest that says you can't do it. Oh, it's always going to be that way.
I'm a product of that.
That's
how I used to be.
Yeah. And that goes right back to, see how, and nothing we say is off topic. See how it goes right back to forgiving yourself.
Absolutely.
Where you were when you were that way.
Right.
That's who you were.
Right.
See, that's who you were. Forgive yourself for who you were and what you had to go through to get where you are today.
So what I hear you saying is, you know, really learn to love the lights and darks of yourself, you know, and step into just accepting who you are. You know, I mean, I have tons of flaws and I recognize those, but I really try to not focus on those, you know, and I'd rather focus on the things, you know, just like how I am right now with this fractured humerus. You know, I've really tried to focus on the things that I can do and not the things that I can't. And it shows me a lot where my mindset is, you know, and how I've really learned a lot differently how to love myself, you know, and I'm sure you have too. And I really hope that, you know, people watching can understand that forgiveness, I know it's hard, and you may think that there's no way, you know, for whatever you've done. But there is forgiveness available at any time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And see, I love how we can, this is why we've stayed friends, you know, how we walk right into when you talked about what you can and cannot do. My second most important acronym is FAITH. FAITH. Feeling as if there's hope.
As if.
Did somebody type in the focus one, by the way?
I haven't seen it yet. If anybody wants to type that acronym of FAITH, you know, we really appreciate that. Awesome.
Yeah.
Jerry said that was an enlightening moment for me. Oh, look at that.
Faith.
And you know what my middle name means? Faith.
Faith. Wow. And meanwhile, the tagline to Faith is, and because this is why I laughed when you just finished saying it, the only thing you cannot do is give up.
That's right.
See, that's what faith is about. That's the only thing you cannot do. Everything else is debatable, you know, you know, and flexible, you know. So yeah, just never give up on yourself. It may take you longer to do something, to heal, to you know, to make things happen. It may take you longer, but why? Because you're comparing yourself to someone else.
And that's the worst thing that you can do. You know, we see everybody, as my pastor says, you see everybody's highlights of life on Instagram and Facebook. You're literally only seeing just snippets of the best of what they want you to see a lot of times, you know, and that's a part of why I'm doing these lives too, because, you know, sometimes they're with people like you. Sometimes they're just me doing crazy stuff like changing a light bulb and trying to figure out how to bring down the fixture with one arm. It's because I want you guys to see that, you know, I'm human just like you, and Sporty's human just like you, you know, and we're just trying every day.
Yeah. And we just, you know, again, one of the things we have to recognize too is that we can learn more from a negative role model than we can from a positive one. And here's why. With a negative role model, we allow ourselves to focus on that. I'm not going to be that way.
Right.
I'm not going to let that happen. So we learn because we see what we don't want to do, and we avoid putting ourselves in that situation, hopefully successfully.
Right.
With a positive role model, what we end up doing is saying, I don't have what it takes to do that. I don't think I can be as good as that person. And so now we strip our spirit out of the equation and we don't try.
We don't try.
So now, because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that I can't do that. And then was it, see, I knew I couldn't, because we don't trust ourselves to take that chance,
Man, in
to
so
find
many
out
ways,
just how good we are.
in so many ways, I totally understand that. How I used to be a person that I was real good at failing a lot of things. And it was so much
Mm-hmm.
easier to fail. And I literally had a fear of success, you know, and it's
Yeah.
stepping into that trust and that knowing that, you know what, when I know better, I do better. At least I try,
Yes.
you know, and I
Yes.
do try to do that every day. And so do you. And I love how we're cultivating people around us that are doing the same thing.
Yes. And in fact, I take it fail, F-A-I-L, faith activated in loss.
You know, that's a great one. If anybody wants to type that one, fail. I mean, who's ever failed before? You know, give a bunch of thumbs up in the comments. We would love to know, because I know I failed all over the place and in spots in so many different areas of my life. You know, and you have too, I'm sure.
And when you fail, again, you know, wisdom being in retrospect, look back. When you failed, what did you do?
You learn.
You activated your faith.
And activated
your faith.
And that's where that grit
Yes.
comes in. You know, I love that word,
Yeah.
grit, because the people that have really struggled and had to fight through a lot of things, I tell you what, they have some of the kindest hearts I've ever met.
Now, here's a first for you. Thank you, Angie. I didn't have an acronym for grit, but as I hear you say it, this is the first time right here on the Angie Drumm Facebook Live.
I love it. I love it.
Yes, grit, growth, resilience, intelligence, and testimonies.
Okay, somebody please type that up for me, because I'm gonna want that later. I'm gonna say that's a for me original from Sporty King. You guys, I'm telling you, that is like, I owe this man like 5 tubs of coffee for that one. I'm telling you. Thank you, because
yeah.
You know, and like Dawn Marie says, you know, let's see here, her comment says, I trust God that he will help me get through it. And I trust him to put the right people in my path to nudge me along and keep going as well. Whether they be, you know, and I'm going to add to that, whether they be somebody who's a positive or negative influence in your life.
Yes. And now look at that. Wow, how God is so good.
He is all the time.
Trust. Not he's often very good. It's all the time.
God is good. That's right.
Now, what's her name who just did that?
Her name is Dawn Marie, and it's actually in the Bible, which is pretty cool.
Dawn Marie, because she walked me into something that I wanted to say anyway,
awesome.
And that you and I had spoken about the pictures in my apartment, and she talked about how God walks you into things. And I'm right now in my dining room, and the pictures on that wall. Most of us know the poem Affirmation Footprints.
Yes, I love that poem.
Okay, I've got 2 pictures that I'm going to show, and it goes right with what she just said. So I'll show the first one is the one that most people know, and if you can really see it,
yeah,
it's God carrying a man out of the storm, and it's you see the 2 sets of footprints,
yeah,
because it's Jesus doing the carrying,
right,
and this is the one that we normally know, but I've got a picture that goes with it.
If you've heard of the poem Footprints, or if that's made an impact on your life, please throw us some 2s. I would love to know your guys' input on that. You know, I was telling Sporty earlier today, that is literally has been my favorite poem, if you will, since I was a kid. My mom literally had my baby shoes bronzed and that poem put in the frame behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been very impactful. And you guys can't make this stuff up. I mean, seriously.
And look, now here's the sister picture to that. And so it's an extension of that poem, Footprints. And this one, Jesus is carrying a woman, and what you may not be able to see unless you expand your screen, she has a child in her arms.
Right.
But here's, what I ended up noticing about my pictures. I didn't have this at the beginning, but if you look on her, let me see if I can do it, on right here, there's a rainbow. but this is actually a demon. That dark cloud is a demon. And so look where the footprints are.
Right.
He's carrying her out of the storm to the rainbow. If we go back to the original one with the poem, we'll see that the footprints are going from clear skies into a storm.
Right.
So just as she said, God, you have to trust God because he's good all the time. He carries us, he takes us into the storm.
Right. And I'm not
So
trying
that
to
he
turn
can-
this into a religious thing or anything like that. You know, it could
No.
be the God of your choice, you know, and things like that. And it's just for Sporty and I, this is kind of how we identify that. I did
Sure.
want to tell you, Sporty, as somebody said, every day I struggle with forgiving myself. It's not easy, and I just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and that falls right in line with footprints. I mean, that's exactly what that is. And sometimes we
Yeah.
have to trust that the footsteps ahead of us have already been taken. It's kind of
Yes.
like when you put your foot in where a footprint has been.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I can't wait to do that in Hollywood, by the way, with Judy Garland. Want to put my hands and feet, you know, in her star on the Walk of Fame. That's on my to-do list. I don't have a bucket list anymore. I have a to-do list. So
in fact, and I don't call mine a bucket list. I call it a live it list.
there you go. See, mine's a to-do and yours is a live it. I love the live it. That's great.
And now what's the guy's name who said he struggles?
His name's Terry. He is a vet. You know,
Okay.
and he's dealt with a lot of stuff. He's a skydiver with me. I've
Mhm.
really been fortunate to get to know him a little bit. And, you know, I'm so thankful that, you know, he's just really opened up and shared a little bit, you know, and I hope that he continues to come on and maybe gain some value, you know, and I hope that you guys are all gaining value as well for this.
Well, I asked his name because I like to say people's name when we send out a blessing. But what I say to Terry is if he takes that statement, because it's a statement that he made,
Yeah.
and just turn the statement around and say and recognize that the affirmation, the blessing is in the closing sentence. It's a struggle every day.
Right.
See, so that's not a question. That's actually a statement. And so that gives you, so since the formula is that it is a struggle every day, now you can look at, I struggle with forgiving myself and say, so see the title is it's a struggle.
Right.
What you struggle with is a subcaption.
I see that.
So all those things that, you know, give the power to the title, not to the subcaption. And then recognize now, because now what you can do is feel good about the fact that, well, hey,
I made it.
you know, yeah, this is a hard thing to do. So I'm struggling. Okay, good. Then that means I'm on the right track.
You know, absolutely.
And
sometimes it's in that resistance, you know, that we build that release, you know, that we're able to actually let go of that crap that's holding you, you know, every day, and that self-talk that, you know, all those lies you've told yourself all those years about not being enough or not being worthy, you know, and it's a great way to shed that, you know, and literally just, I have affirmations on my mirror. I am enough. I am worthy. I deserve this.
And you should, and in fact, that takes me to one of the principles that I use in my life. You should have words on your walls. It's good to have pictures, but you need to have affirmations and things that you can read that you believe, so that you can, because see, pictures are perception, words are finite. This is what I believe, and I've got on my wall. You've got on your mirror, Angie. But you know what I do? I've got, for instance, whenever I need to make a decision, I have 4 things that need to be satisfied. Because I want to, because I can, because it's time, and because I should.
Okay.
So whenever I have a decision to make, I put it through that grinder, and I say, well, is this something that I want to do?
Right.
Is it something that I can do? Is it something that I should do? And is this time for me to do this? If the thing fulfills 3 out of those 4 qualifications, then I go through with it. But I say that to say that's my formula. But whatever your formula is, I've got that sign on my bedroom door, so that I can see it, not on my bedroom door, on my bedroom wall next to my door. So when I wake up, it's the first thing I can see, that this is what I believe in.
Right.
Since I work out of my home, I have it on my wall in front of my desk where I spend most of my time working, so I can see what I believe. And I have it on my door for when I'm leaving my apartment, so that I can see what I believe as I go out into the world. See, so, so when you talk about talking to yourself, that's what the words on your wall do. They're things that you believe in, and have them in as many spots. Because I've got different words on each wall and each room in my apartment. Each room has words on the walls.
I love that. And thank you guys for those of you just joining us. Sporty King and I are just having a chat. If you're, like I said, watching the replay, please hashtag replay, and thanks so much. And I really like how essentially what I hear you saying is how words have power. And it doesn't mean if you're saying them to yourself and your mind of all, whether it be positive or negative, some of those old tapes, as that really just play over and over, and letting those go. And really stepping into that forgiveness and self-love, and it doesn't mean everything is all rainbows and unicorns. I mean, we still have hard days, I mean, like, yes, overall, I am content, and I'm so thankful and blessed. And I do try to live a life of gratitude, and if you don't know what that is, here's a great way to start.
And two things out of it, what you just said. One, and that is, not only do you throw away some of those old tapes, choose the ones that you're going to save.
Right.
Because, it's the stuff from way back is more pure and authentic who we are. When we were closer to being children, and we were more open about how we felt.
Right.
But also, one thing I also say, and this is one of my always, even though I don't like extremes, but I'm not positive 365 24/7.
Right.
I'm not, but I'm positive more than I'm negative. I'm up
Amen.
More than I'm down.
That's right.
And I'm going forward more than I'm moving backwards.
Yes.
And every now and then, there's nothing wrong with just reframing it and step back and take a look at your work.
Yeah.
See, that's where you're forgiving yourself and trusting yourself to make another decision. So, not always positive, but positive, more positive than negative.
Right.
Up more than down.
Yeah.
Forward more than backwards.
Kind of like the 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah. Step back and give yourself credit, because the things that you've been through in your life, no one else has.
Right.
One thing I never say to anybody, I know what you're going through. I've been in your shoes. No, I haven't. I don't know what you're going through. I haven't been in your shoes, but I've been in your row.
Gotcha.
Because all of us are going through something, and we've been in the row together, and I can look down the row and say, hey, it's going to be okay.
Right? Because it's kind of like when you're playing like magical chairs, or musical chairs, excuse me, and you take different seats with different perspectives at different times, and that's what I hear you saying is like, that's what's motivated me in the past when I've had some serious struggles, and I knew people that had gotten on the other side of it, and I reached out to them and I was like, hey, you made it. How'd you do that? Like, tell me a few things that you did, and maybe I can try it too. And so, if you're struggling today with just making it, feel free to message me or Sporty, and we'd love to get you connected with some resources that maybe can help change your perceptions and help you know that you're loved.
And even by you doing that, that actually is the first step proving that you love yourself. See, again, it's the little things that we need to let add up. Uh-oh, my battery is getting low.
Okay, we better hurry up. So I thank you so much, and I hope to have you on again in the future. If you guys have gained value, from some things today, seriously, please let me know your feedback, and Sporty too. We would love to hear from you. Thanks so much for participating in the comments today. And increments to a goal is what Terry says. And I'm totally in alignment with that. Set your goals, because at least it gives you something to shoot for. And if you reach the stars going past the moon, well, you know where you end up.
Thank you so much, Angie. It's good to reconnect with you. Thank you, Terry. I know you're, and the other name, I couldn't remember the name.
Don Maurice.
Don Reese. Yeah,
And my friend Jerry's been commenting quite a bit too, and she's been throwing up some things that you've been saying in the comments. And Sporty's going to put some links to some of the things that he said, as well as he is an author of a new book, right?
Of a latest book.
Of the latest book, okay.
That was in 2016, actually, was my latest. But I've got 8. Yeah.
Wow.
And I think it's great to end on because it's called Stuff Happens. And
Tell me about it. Tell me about it. Nobody's had any stuff happen to them, right? Never.
Right. And stuff is STUFF, situations that unleash our focus and faith, which are the 2 main acronyms we talked about.
Right.
You know, releasing yourself to be who you are, and then having the faith that know that who you are is good enough, and you can handle and get through the stuff.
That's right. I love that. Thank you so much, Sporty, for joining me today. And thank you guys for participating. We look forward to hearing from you, and have a fantastic motivational Monday.
Woo!
All right.
God bless.
Guys.
Ciao.
Thank you.